John Middleton, Kenton Circuit Clerk, and I am the current president of the Kentucky Association of Circuit Court Clerks. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I'd like to especially thank David Nicholson for the opportunity to present to you today. As you may know, Mr. Nicholson is the first circuit clerk to serve as president of KACo and the first from Jefferson County to serve in that role. We're proud of our fellow circuit clerk. As in most legislative sessions, the circuit clerks will be closely monitoring legislation in 2018. As in nearly every session, there are some changes that affect our offices. Some are small changes, such as changes in codes, while others are major changes, such as recent changes in juvenile justice and the way driver's licenses are issued. As with so many groups that come before your committee, funding is our top priority. As you may know, circuit clerks have no budget, but fall under the judicial branch budget. This co-equal branch of government comprises on average just 3.3% of the state's budget, while having 10% of the state's workforce. In fact, nearly 87% of the general fund appropriation to the judicial branch goes towards personnel costs for deputy clerks, elected clerks, and others in the Court of Justice. Unfortunately, we are now in a crisis situation in the Court of Justice. While we understand that times are tough, our salaries, particularly those of our deputy clerks, have suffered for far too long. Many of our deputies work second or third jobs to make ends meet. A number of them are at the poverty line for a family of four. Unfortunately, when it comes to salaries, we're not competing just against the private sector. Our biggest issue is we're competing against other branches of government. For example, deputy court clerks who process the work of judges, law enforcement, and other Court of Justice partners are paid on the average approximately $7,000 less than Administrative Specialist 3 in the executive branch. Deputy clerks perform the same duties as Highway Department legal branch assistants, but are paid $7,000 less. Staff attorneys for the circuit judges in the Court of Justice are paid on an average approximately $9,900 less than staff attorneys in the executive branch. Court of Justice staff attorneys perform the same functions as staff attorneys in the executive branch, but are paid approximately $9,900 less. Court-designated workers who deal with juvenile offenders are paid approximately $9,400 less than case management specialists in the executive branch. The CDWs perform similar functions as executive branch counterparts, yet are paid $9,400 less. Pretrial release officers who deal with determining whether someone should be released from jail are paid approximately $7,000 less than probation and parole officers level 2 in the executive branch. Pretrial officers perform similar functions as their executive branch counterparts, yet are paid $7,000 less. This is why the Chief Justice has put together a compensation commission made up of judges and circuit clerks to examine the salary situation. This commission has recommended, and the Chief has included in his budget request, increases in salaries for all Court of Justice personnel. We fully support this effort to lift our deputies and others out of poverty. Another legislative priority has been monitoring the pension crisis reform. We applaud you, the legislature, for not kicking the can down the road any further. We sincerely appreciate the efforts to ensure that promises made are promises kept. We have 4 concerns with the current draft legislation. First and foremost is the 3% pay cut that we would take. This 3% payment for health insurance and retirement is not simply a 3% increase in premiums, but a 3% cut in gross pay. As mentioned earlier, this will force our deputies onto public assistance roles. Second, many of our deputies who've worked many years and did not use all of their sick time with the understanding that they could use that as months of service towards retirement. Their time is not used to spike their pensions, but simply to add months of service. We believe it would be fair for them to do so. Another promise to our new deputies and circuit clerks who are currently enrolled in the Tier 3 retirement plan. We will encourage you to allow them to remain in this plan with a 4% guarantee to keep the promises made to them when they were hired. Finally, we have a number of deputies who have retired and then determined that they loved their job so much they wanted to come back full time. Under Court of Justice policies, those deputies would typically come back at a lower pay rate and are not entitled to a second pension. We encourage you to allow these deputies and clerks to come back. Earlier, I mentioned the General Assembly makes major changes to how we do business. This last session was one of those times with the Real ID compliant driver's license bill was passed. This issue has generated a lot of media attention about Kentucky's compliance with the federal act and the ability to fly with Kentucky licenses. Kentucky has received an extension to comply, and the RFP has been released. As with so many things, circuit clerks and deputy clerks are the front line for government on this issue. As you may be aware, elected clerks receive no salary for performing this important and increasingly complex government function, and the Court of Justice does not receive enough funding to pay for deputy clerks to use to issue driver's licenses. We will continue to monitor this issue if any changes are made to that legislation. We will also closely monitor the implementation of the new system by the Department of Transportation. We are greatly concerned about funding for our charitable organization, the Trust for Life, as we embark on this longer license period. We are thankful the legislation has allowed us to ask for $2 for this life-saving mission and look forward to ensuring its long-term success. In closing, we thank you for your support of the women and men of the Circuit Clerk's offices. We are confident that you can find a way to bring pay parity to those frontline workers in the Court of Justice who are paid much less but perform similar functions to those employees in the executive branch. We are always willing to work with you to implement the policies you deem necessary for the betterment of the Commonwealth and look forward to working with you in the upcoming session.